my schedule. Hi, sorry, I also run AV, so I'm like dealing with a million things at once.
I just realized we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cameras.
Do you want me to get more?
Let's just overkill this. Why not?
Every angle.
No, we're just gonna tear down all like the cinema cameras and main stage and set them up here too.
This panel is very important.
Very, very important.
Yes.
This hearing. I'm just gonna talk loudly. Can you all hear me when I talk loudly?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So, let's go then. Welcome to Exploring in Fursuit. If this is your first time here, we did a panel like this last year. It's going to be some similar content, however, it's going to be also updated with some new stuff that I've learned since then. This one, what's up?
Could you please take a step to your right? Thank you.
Wonderful. This one is deemed Travel Edition because this year, rather than staying in the Pacific Northwest, I went to Europe and did some exploring around there. So I'll be talking about international fursuiting and how that kind of works. Let's go to the next slide. So, presenters. Hi, I'm NoRef. I go by they, them. I like running around in the woods in fursuit. I like abandoned railroads. If you know of abandoned railroads out here, hit me up. I would love to hear about them because I like checking them out. I also do audiovisual production. I'm running like lighting, visuals, VR dancers, VR portal for main stage. So if you're interested in that stuff, I'm also doing a talk Sunday called Behind the Tech, where we basically give you a whole tour around main stage and explain how all the stuff works. If you're interested, come check out that. And my co-presenter is...
Hi, I'm Nate. This is Spruce. I'm a fish and wildlife conservation major at OSU, and I'm a wildlife rehabilitation specialist over Shintimony Wildlife down in Corvallis, Oregon.
Awesome. All right, so to start off with, I'm not an expert. I do this for fun, but I wouldn't call myself like a definitive source of information. Also, this panel is intended for beginners. I'll be going to some more complex subjects, but it will be assuming that you're just sort of starting off in your exploring in fursuit, or just exploring or fursuiting journey. I tend to lean more towards the outdoors rather than urban exploration, like indoor stuff, but you will see some of that here. And then finally, the disclaimer, exploring can be dangerous. Make sure that you take all the proper precautions before you go out and know what you're doing, especially if you're getting into something that you don't really know what you're doing. And then on top of that, as I'll talk about later, bringing friends is a must when you're doing this. Go ahead and hit the next slide. So first off, why do this? Why do public fursuiting? One of the big reasons is just sort of spreading the furry around and letting other people know what's going on. Some people get freaked out that people might have bad interactions with people in fursuit, especially if you're going to like some of the more conservative areas. I have found that that is oftentimes not the case. I have had very, very few bad experiences fursuiting, and the vast majority of it is people who are excited and happy to see us. So if you're afraid of that, don't be. It's usually pretty cool. Just check in beforehand with the places you're going to make sure that they're okay with it. Another thing here is exercise. A lot of this involves walking around and hiking and exploring outdoors. So if you sit around a lot like me on computers, this can be a great way to get outside and exercise. And also enjoying the outdoors, getting fresh air, appreciating the wonderful Pacific Northwest we have around us, or wherever you might be. It's also a good way to make friends. A lot of the really awesome friends I've met that have traveled all over the world with me, I have met through going exploring and hiking. And then finally, it's just lots of fun. Being an animal running around in the woods is a pretty amazing experience. Next slide. So to start off, before you can do anything, you have to figure out where you're going to go. And in order to do that, you have to find places. So there are a couple different ways to do this. The one I'll start with is online search. So I'll usually search around and be like, oh, I want to find some abandoned railroads. So I'll just search online, try to find some pictures or images of places people have already been, and then try to trace back those images. There are various ways to do that. You can like look online. That I'll go over more into in a bit. Some places to find those is like trip report sites and socials, like Washington Trails is a good place to check for around here. There are others for different states. And then just people posting stuff on like Twitter or anywhere else you might go, finding images there. Also news articles, especially if you're looking for more abandoned stuff, searching like X abandoned or X shut down, and trying to find like when it happened or news articles pertaining to that. That can be a good way to find old or abandoned stuff. And then also archives and records. Like the state government publishes a lot of stuff about like old industrial stuff out in the middle of nowhere that you can't really find a lot of information out there. If you go digging through government sites, you will often find very interesting and cool information about like mining claims and other things that you wouldn't really be able to find anywhere. So that's something to check out. Go ahead and hit next. So I am one of those people where I will open up Google Maps and spend hours just scrolling through it looking for interesting things on satellite view. There is some really cool stuff out there, especially if you take the time to look around. That's where I found a lot of really interesting places. However, Google Maps isn't the only thing. OpenStreetMap is also a thing, which is much more crowdsourced information. And that is particularly good at finding trails and more obscure roads that wouldn't necessarily be labeled on Google Maps. So there's upsides and downsides to both of them. Check them out and look at both. Another thing to look at, especially if you're going to a place and you don't necessarily know what the owners might think of you being there or who even the owner is to check GIS and parcel data. Particularly for Washington State, you can just search like parcel data and then your county here, and it will pull up like a list of parcels, and you can search through there, see who owns it, see who you might need to contact to get access to it, or if it's like public land and no one will care. And then phone apps. When you're going exploring, make sure you have offline maps loaded up on there because you may not always have a cellular connection wherever you're going. Any questions so far? Yes?
What does parcel mean?
It's like a plot of land.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like who owns?
Yeah, who owns a certain plot of land? It's basically they just draw like lines around certain sections on the map and say this is yours, this is yours. Yes. All right. Next one. All right. Finding places, traveling around. This place I'm at is in Norway, and we actually just found it just by driving along the road. I wouldn't have expected. Norway is literally cheat codes for getting good photos. Like you can just point your camera anywhere, take a picture, and it's like just freaking beautiful. I love it. It's amazing. A lot of pictures you're gonna see in here is of Norway, and I did a trip up there with some friends. It was a big road trip. I went to Norway, and then I went to the UK with some other friends, and then went around the Netherlands after that. So sometimes driving or wandering is the best way to find new places. Don't be afraid to slow down and check out the area that you're in. Sometimes just like pick a direction, drive in it, and then just look around to see what's there. Make notes on your map as you're going of interesting places you spot, and then you can come back and check them out afterwards, or if you got the time, pull over and check them out as you go along. Any questions so far? Nope, okay, next. Okay, so the final one, finding places, is word of mouth. It's just friends will oftentimes know interesting or cool places that you can go. I know a lot of places you can go. However, this session's being recorded, so I will not talk about them on camera. If you're interested in some of the places that I've gone on these slides, feel free to come up and talk to me afterwards, but I usually don't share them publicly, just because once places get publicized a lot, more people come and they tend to get trashed. Which, especially if you've got a nice, pristine place that you haven't been before, not a lot of people have been before, it's nice to keep it clean for those who want to find it. Like this place here, I found through a friend down south who was like, oh, I found an abandoned railroad near Ryan. Do you want to go check it out? I was like, sure, let's go do it. Also, all the pictures I have of me sitting on railroads, they are all either abandoned or inactive. Do not go exploring on active tracks. It's a bad idea. Okay, next one. Yeah. So now that we found a place that we want to go, we're going to go fursuiting there. So the first thing is you will get dirty. You need to learn how to properly clean and sanitize your suit. If you want a good source for that, Major C's has a wonderful tutorial on fursuit washing and how to do that. Just look up, I think it's majorcs.net. Yeah, check on there, they have a good tutorial. There are also a lot of really good ones on YouTube you can look at. But also just like taking the time to regularly brush your suit, regularly clean your suit, and we'll keep it nice and clean. And then also, like, if you're an idiot like me and go fursuiting in the ocean, make sure to thoroughly rinse your tail after you do that so you don't get salt water building up in there. So full versus partial suiting. When I traveled to Europe this year, I did not actually bring my full suit. It was just fully partial for pictures, which many people, when they're first getting into the fandom, first think, oh, I need to get a full suit. That's what everyone else is doing. No, that's not the case. I have a full suit. I partial way more. And oftentimes I'm just like, do I even want to bring my full suit because it's big and it's bulky and takes up a lot of space, and it's difficult to navigate around, whereas you'll see with my setup here, all of the stuff I need to partial fits into a backpack, and you can have outfits and accessorize and customize it however you want. Whereas with a full suit, you kind of have to get like specific tools for it. So I definitely prefer partial. If you're one of those crazy people who wants to haul your full suit up a mountain and take pictures with it, more power to you. Because I know some people like that, but it's not me. Another thing about fursuiting is interacting with people. You will run into people even if you're in remote or abandoned places. And you want to know how to interact with people. If you're going to be a silent suitor, if your character's silent, you will want to have a handler with you who is comfortable talking to other people just so they can explain what's going on. If you're okay being verbal, then oftentimes you can talk. Just be aware that some people may want you to like take off the head to have a conversation. Other people are chill with it. It's just sort of suss out the situation, figure out what the vibe is, and communicate in the way that will make the other person feel the most comfortable. All right, next. Navigation. So, as you can see here, there's a bunch of us sitting on a bunch of wet rocks in front of a waterfall. This was not exactly an easy place to get to. As I said last time, don't be afraid to take off your head. There's a lot of stuff talked about in the fandom about ruining the magic, so to say. But if it's a matter of safety or personal comfort or someone else's safety, do not be afraid to take off your head. It's far better that you take off your head and navigate safely over something than leave it on and fall and damage your $1,000 costume that is sometimes irreplaceable. So if you're going to go out and do this, definitely practice in a safe environment. Maybe go out to some woods nearby where you are and just wander around. Watch where your ears and tail are. If you haven't suited a lot, you may not be used to having things sticking out of your head and things sticking out of your behind. That can get caught on things, so be aware of where those are. And then also bring a handler. I do a number of things solo suiting, but like almost always when I'm going out, especially to treasure train, I will have a friend or a handler with me who can watch things and make sure I'm not tripping over myself and falling and injuring myself. Any questions so far? Oh, we're doing good. Next slide. Okay. Utility. So this is where this comes in. This is my backpack traveling kit. There is a lot of things I can talk about with this, but the main thing is that I use this to carry my head. All that is on the back, I have a hard hat strap that can go around my head to hold myself in here. And that has 2 holes on either side of it, and I have 2 carabiners on my back that I can very easily attach my head to here to carry it around, and then I can put a plastic bag over it if it rains to keep it set up. And then the other thing is my tail is strapped on here with just like a regular strap. But the really cool part of this is I have a detachable tail. This is my belt, and where's my other thing? No, hang on, let me pull my paws out and find it fell down apparently. Oh, here it is. Okay, so the way I do my tail is this is actually a camera plate. If you use a camera doll, you'll oftentimes see that they have like this type of plate attached to the bottom of it, and then this goes like on your shirt and you can hang your camera off of here. I thought, why not use that for a tail? So I just have a cheese plate running through the belt straps, and then I can just slip this onto here. If I do it the right direction. It can be difficult to do if you're not used to it. And it locks in, and then my belt loop just goes through here. And I can just wear it and easily take it on and off. This is very, very useful if you're doing a lot of photo shoots where you need to get in and out of the car a lot. This actually happened when we were around Mount Rainier and just driving to the different viewpoints. It was like, okay, take some pictures, get back in the car, and then just in and out and in and out. And eventually my tail strap broke. And that prompted me to figure out a way to want to do it easier. Another reason is if your tail gets caught on something, having a quick release mechanism so you can get it off, get yourself untangled is very, very convenient to have.
So you don't have to take your belt off. Right?
Yeah, no, my belt can stay on the entire time. The tail just slides on and off like this. And when it's on, it's like not really visible at all. So it's very, very nice to have. And then my hand paws just go right inside my backpack. The key thing about these is these are my outdoor hand paws. I've got 2 sets of hand paws, my indoor, which are like my nice ones that are not beat up, and these outdoor ones, which are slightly beat up, but have a much nicer feature in them, which is they have holes in the paws. So I can stick my fingers out and be able to manipulate stuff. This is very, very useful for when you're solo and getting around, you need to like pull out your phone or operate a door or something, and you've got big paws on your hands that you can't do stuff in. But if you can stick out the fingers, it makes it a lot easier to do. Yeah, I think I went over all the stuff here. Go to the next slide. Photography. So, A lot of people think you also need a fancy camera to get good photos. All you really need is just like a fursuit head, or even like a, fursuit head, and then like just a phone. I've gotten some amazing photos just with a regular camera phone. Phones these days have absolutely amazing cameras, and especially if you know how to take like it with flat colors and color grade afterwards, it can turn out even better. So don't think you're limited or you have to go out and buy a really fancy camera just when you're starting. Your phone is oftentimes just fine. Just learn about photography, learn about color grading. There are completely free tools that you can use out there to do it. Like specifically Darktable is one that's completely free to download and use, so you don't need like Photoshop or Lightroom or any of that stuff to do it. Another thing for photography, when you're taking pictures of yourself, it gives you a reason to be out there. If you're just running around in a wolf costume in the woods wooing at people, people will sometimes question that and wonder what's going on. But if you can tell them, hey, we're taking pictures, we're doing a photo shoot, suddenly something clicks in their brain, they're like, oh, this is now suddenly completely normal. This is cool. Have fun. Have a good time. So having a photographer with you can oftentimes make it easier to get into places that people might question you otherwise for. So when you're doing photography, if you're working with like a higher-end camera with like that has interchangeable lenses, adapt it to where you're going. If you're climbing up a mountain and you don't want a lot of heavy gear and you're taking videos, maybe just take a lightweight action camera or your phone, or just maybe a smaller lens kit. If you're driving around in a car, you can oftentimes bring a lot heavier lenses. It's also know what kind of landscapes you're going to be dealing with. If you're going out with things like at far views, bring a telephoto lens. If you're bringing with like tight enclosed urbex spaces, bring like a fisheye lens. Just match your type of gear to where you're going. Also remember to bring a flash if you're going to be in challenging lighting conditions. I'll talk about that more later, but especially if you're like me and you have a dark fursuit, lighting is really, really important. I have so many photos that turned out terrible because the lighting wasn't good that would have otherwise been fantastic photos. And also remember to take naps. Naps are very important. Next slide. Okay, so lighting. Lighting is very, very important when fursuiting. People underestimate how important it is, especially time of day. Sunlight is going to be your primary lighting source when you're outdoors, just because it's so bright. And you can use it to your advantage or to your disadvantage, or sometimes your disadvantage advantage. Like right here, you can see I'm not lit, but this is a really cool photo, isn't it? Silhouetted on a beach with like the wind towers in the background. Yeah. Anyways, so know what time of day it is, understand which direction the sun's going to be coming from, and plan out your photos based upon that, if you can. If you can't, or you're going to be indoors or like under trees or in challenging lighting conditions or the sun isn't cooperating, make sure you bring a flash or small photography lighting to help with that. Also, if you have light up eyes on your suit, like I have LEDs in my eyes that can make them light up, especially if you're gonna be like indoors, like if you're in like some old abandoned like military bunker with glowing eyes, oh man, that makes some great cursed photos. Highly recommend that.
Backrooms.
Yes, exactly. Even better if you get like some small kids running there and then you can scare them away. Also, if you're doing night lapse photos, this is a little trick I learned. Don't actually take the picture with you sitting there unless you're like Tails, one of my friends, and can just sit still for a very, very long extended period of time. What we'll often do to get night lapse photos is just put your head on top of a tripod and take the picture with that, because then you don't have to worry about it moving. For those who don't know, night lapse is when you take a really long exposure photo at light. It can get like really good views of the sky and the stars and stuff, and you can get like your fursuit head silhouetted against that. So if you've seen me post any of those, I'm not actually wearing my head as like propped up on a tripod or something. Little trick there. Any questions about lighting, photography in general? No? Okay, next slide. I think we're doing good on time. I'm going faster this time. Okay, so final slide for me. The most important part about doing fursuiting is bring friends. Don't go exploring solo. Follow the buddy system. Like for this Norway trip, we had a whole group of people spread across 3 cars that we were road tripping across it with. And that helped a lot, both with knowing our way around. We had people who understood the local language. Especially if you're traveling internationally, having people who understand the language of where you're going, understand the customs and everything, and can help point you to places where it's cool to go is very, very useful to have. If you don't have a group, start one. There are a lot of groups that already exist around the Pacific Northwest for going exploring, but like you're in a bunch of like-minded people. If you don't already know people, maybe talk to some people after this panel. You can find some people to go exploring with. Another thing is, even if especially if you don't have someone going with you, but always tell someone when you're going and when to expect you back, especially if you're going somewhere far out. Because then if you get lost and can't find your way back, they'll know to expect you back and can alert someone to go looking for you if you don't. So bringing friends, very important. And I think that's my last slide. Do you want to do yours next? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was for last year.
Yeah, that was my last slide. Any questions on the stuff I talked about? Yes.
When you travel internationally, do you have your fursuit as checked luggage, or do you usually have it as your carry-on?
Yes. So when I travel internationally, all of my fursuit parts go in my checked luggage. My head comes with me because I don't want to lose my head because the maker who made it no longer exists, so it's kind of irreplaceable. So yeah, it's basically depends on how much attachment you have to your fursuit. It's much more convenient to put it in checked luggage. But also, when you're traveling internationally, I like to travel light. Like when I was going around there, I basically had just my backpack, a bag for my clothes, and then just like a rolling bag that I carried behind me. The more stuff you can strip away, the less stuff that you can travel with, the easier it is to get around. I saw another question. Yes?
When you're going out to, like, I guess, real far out places, do you usually wear your suit on the journey out there, or only once you get there for the photos?
Depends on the terrain. I do like hiking in fursuit, but it's a case of, is the trail nice enough to go along? Like if it's a flat concrete trail, obviously yes, I'm gonna fursuit along there, unless it's Mount Rainier and we're hiking out near Paradise, in which case we're going full vertical and getting heat stroke because we're hiking in fursuit, so don't do that. Or alternatively, if it's like off trail and it's really muddy, there's high amounts of trip hazards, I'll take off my head. So yes, I like hiking and exploring around in a fursuit, but it's dependent on what the conditions are. Cool. Did we have a question over here? Nope. Okay. I think it's time for you.
All right, so Noel briefly touched on this, but overcoming the public, basically, if you're going out, always have a handler with you. And when you arrive on the site, usually sometimes I go out of suit when I was alone. Don't do that. I'd go around just to make sure if there was any trip hazards or any kind of parking fees or anything like that. It's really important because it helps maintain these areas for our national forests. Also be mindful, trail etiquette, always be on the right side, and never like stop in the middle of a trail. Always like maybe find like a more appropriate space off to the side of like a waterfall. This was over at Silver Falls, just out of Salem, Oregon. Yeah, it was very fun. It was very fun. And then when people come up to you, obviously, like the go-to for me at least is, oh, I'm just taking pictures of my costume. I'm not really like gonna be like, oh yes, I'm afraid, this is this. Yeah, I like tend to avoid that kind of stuff just so it goes bang bang. And then also like silent suiting, I know Noel touched on that. It also gives you an opportunity to discover your character. If you do like a simple wave, and if children come up and if they ask for a photo, usually I just kind of not really touch the child and just basically smile and wave, boys. But yeah. Okay, so as a wildlife rehabilitation specialist, I like to emphasize a lot. Obviously, when you're fursuiting outdoors or going outdoors in general, you're going to encounter wildlife. There are certain places where wildlife is really present. Basically areas of like watersheds, sometimes parking lots, sometimes near trash cans, Forest Service bathrooms, anything like that. Just definitely be mindful in case you see like a bear or something like that. And always like pack in and pack out. Make sure, I usually sometimes bring like a little plastic bag with me at times, and if I see any litter or trash, I usually go ahead and pick that up. And then also, if there's a sign that says prohibited area, I know that there is a place on the Oregon coast. I think it's from the season of, gosh, I'd say fall through May. Snowy plovers, it's an endangered species, and they nest basically on the beach. They don't nest in trees or anything, which makes them at a higher risk. Usually it's sectioned off with crossing tape, and then usually there's a big sign with like a huge education thing. don't go fursuiting and that kind of stuff, and always be mindful. Doing a lot of research too of the specific area is really important. And then also, don't feed wildlife. It can be tempting, especially with the gray jays. I remember I went to Mount Rainier with my other suit, and I fed like a gray jay some crackers and stuff. They are camp robbers, but I find that like over time, especially since I work with a lot of patients with birds and stuff, and we get them in, they're injured. Usually their GI tract is full of just straight up gunk. And that can also develop metabolic bone disease, which basically is like if they receive nutrition that is so poor when they're like developing and stuff, their bones are literally like liquid, and it makes their lifespan shorter. And then photos with wildlife. Don't really recommend it. If you see a deer, especially with with babies, definitely like take at least like I would say like 60 feet back, just to make sure of just let them pass through. Some people in Yellowstone take pictures of bison. Really bad. There was one video where like this lady put her child on top of an elk. That was horrible. One of my coworkers was telling me about that. I was like, no. So just definitely be mindful. And then also looking at animal behavior signs. I know that when deer are angry, they have their ears back, and they're kind of jolty-ish. And then usually with birds, they tend to pace around a lot, either that or they fly off. I've never encountered a coyote before, so I wouldn't really know, but definitely when you do see something in the middle of the trail, I would honestly just take off your head and just kind of remain your distance from it. And also, this is kind of like a last case measure, bring bear spray. You never know if like an animal can charge at you, especially if you're in a giant suit. It makes the animal like be like, oh, you're bigger than me, I'm gonna punch you in the face, kind of thing. But yeah. Yeah, that's the end of mine, so.
Yippee! Yay. Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, I have a question. You talked briefly about animals and like what to do. I'm in an area where there's lots of off-leash dogs.
Mm-hmm.
How would you obviously take the head off if a dog is approaching you as well? Is there anything else to be concerned about with an off-leash dog rapidly approaching you?
Right, usually always have a handler with you.
Right.
To always just kind of make sure that the dog is not really aggressive, and kind of just stand right in front of the suit and kind of just use your arms around just so the dog doesn't tend to rip any fursuit parts or anything. But usually I'd wait like a couple minutes or so of an owner coming by and just say, please just leash up your dog. There's wildlife here that can be impacted by that.
Right. Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I have something to add.
Oh,
Actually.
sorry. Yeah.
So it kind of goes into like hiking safety. If you're parking your car, if you're bringing your own car, like don't bring anything with you that you're not going to take on the hike with you, because car break-ins at hiking trail parking spots is a big thing in this state and all around, because they know you're going to be away from your vehicle for an extended period of time. So don't leave anything in there that you don't want to disappear.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, if other people have stuff to add or we want to have a discussion, we've still got half an hour, so. Plenty of time. Did you have a question?
I was just going to add to the dog thing. I know some dogs don't like hats or like things on your head. I've encountered a few dogs that don't like that, so maybe taking off your head if the dog seems not comfortable with it, but I don't know if you your head.
Yeah, I've also run into that with dogs. Generally, if the dog is not happy, I will take off my head or just not look at it and move past it fairly fast. Yeah. Yes.
Have you ever encountered anyone else while you're out and about who's been like trying to be confrontational with you?
The worst I've had was like in downtown Seattle dealing with drunk people. Most of the people who are out and about on the trails are really chill about it.
Cool.
Yes.
How do you get tree sap out of fursuit for?
I'll try to avoid touching the tree in the first place. I've never run into like a really bad sap problem. But if you do, it's just like soak it in lots of warm water. I forget what I used to get it out. It was some specific chemical. I would refer to Matrices cleaning guide for like deep cleaning fursuits to go over that. Yeah.
Oh, rubbing alcohol is pretty good for that because I got sap in this jacket.
Oh yeah.
Like
rubbing
your
alcohol.
paw on a tree.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Another thing is ask your maker what they should use because different types of materials for fursuits can like have issues with different types of cleaning procedures. So my recommendation: ask your maker what the best procedure for cleaning your fursuit is. They will know.
I had sap in my fursuit paw. Yeah, it's horrible.
Plugging the fur like bunched up and it became a ball, and I was like, yeah. Also, if we want, I can also just tell stories about the trip that I took and the stuff we encountered there. Oh, did my power brick not come with me? That would be a problem. Do you have a charger?
I do.
Okay.
Alright.
Okay.
She's gonna die.
No. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to here and just show a few more slides. Hop back to the start, and I can show some slides and talk about the places we went. So this one is in a valley in like a random place in Norway. This is one of my favorite places that we went to. Specifically, it was very, very thin road going through, and when you went out, it was just mostly dirt trails going along there. But on one side was this view, and on the other side was this other picture. Where is it? This lake on the other side. Absolutely beautiful place. Would highly recommend checking out Norway if you're ever able to get out there. This picture here is an abandoned railroad on the border between Germany and the Netherlands. This one was actually a cool one. This was one of those things where I went to Europe and I wanted to find abandoned railroads, but there are very few abandoned railroads in Europe because they're limited on space, so they always just tear stuff down and reuse it. But apparently this one, I did some research, and once again, government records. This one is in a whole dispute between the various rail companies and governments on who's going to run it and how it's going to be used. And in the meantime, it just hasn't been used. So it's like all completely overgrown. And I managed to find it on Google Maps, find the sections that were like cut off from the trails. And then we went like on the Germany-Netherlands border and hiked around and explored various sections of it and took pictures. And then I think I also posted and like asked people to like try to geolocate me. Which actually, I think only one person got it just because it was pretty challenging. Yeah, and then this one went out with this one. Yeah, south of here, found a disused railroad. Took some pictures on it. I think this is also the same picture with Wake Wolf here. Yeah, Wake Wolf came along with us. That was a fun trip.
If people want to do like abandoned rail pictures around here, there's that one I took you to in DuPont.
Yeah.
The hiking trail. No, that wasn't Olympia. The DuPont one is it's on like a public access hiking spot that's really nice photo opportunity.
Yup. Yeah, DuPont is also good just because it also has that concrete ship out there. Yeah.
That was fun too.
That
That's the
one's
same spot.
Yeah, you have to watch out for the tide with that one. There's like this old concrete ship out in the tide flats, which if it's low tide, you can walk out to it. Like I climbed inside and took some fursuit photos in there, but we had to get back fast because like the tide filled in really, really quick. There's no outlet. It's way over there. Oh no.
There's no extension.
Okay, I guess we'll go until the computer runs out of batteries.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then this one is on a, what's the name? A fjord in Norway. They have a lot where it's basically just this thin valley with water at the bottom. And it just goes really long, just snaking through the mountains. It's really beautiful. And then this, right, the bird is Sora Griffin, and then the cat is Melon now. And this was, yeah, and this was just like Melon started like pointing out the fjord and taking a picture, and so it was like, oh, I'm gonna take a selfie and point at Melon. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna take a selfie and point at Sora.
It's like this Spider-Man.
Just recursive, yeah. This is actually the same fjord, except this one is color graded differently, so it looks like a completely different photo. But you can see just like the mountains with the water going back along here. It's really, really beautiful. Then this one is just like a random lake that we stopped at along the road in Norway. Like, as I said, you can literally stop anywhere and take pictures and it looks freaking beautiful. And this was, I found a rock and just squatted on top of it. You have to get good at balancing it first, because like this looks like a beautiful photo, but inside I'm just kind of shaking to be like, oh no, am I gonna tip over and fall into the lake? What am I doing here? Yeah, I already talked about that one, This one is off the coast of the Netherlands. We drove south through Zeeland, which Z is apparently the Dutch word for sea, which I didn't know before. And if you go far enough south, there's like a nuclear power plant along the coast, which we originally wanted to check out, which turned out to be not that interesting, but there was also a wind farm nearby and this beautiful beach, and we caught the sunset right at a perfect time. I waded out into the water and got this photo snapped to me, which was absolutely beautiful. I have fursuited in multiple bodies of water at this point. I've gone in the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, Lake Tahoe, water off the coast of the UK, and off the coast of the Netherlands. This one was a waterfall, which was like a tourist attraction. It took us a while to get this photo just because there were so many other people around. But we managed to get it. The waterfall you can't see here, but it just goes way up higher. And the rocks are very, very wet. This was another one that we got some cool photos of us just like standing on the bridge in front of it. Yes. Yes.
One thing I would also add is really know your limitations. Like,
yes.
Don't plan, I'm going to go to this cool waterfall, but it's a 12-mile hike to get there, and I've never walked more than 2. Like, know where you're going to kind of gas yourself out and work yourself up to something big like that.
And that's another thing, is also constantly test yourself with what's going on. Like right before the trip, I was like on the tail end of a cold and recovering from it, and my breathing still wasn't back. And when we got up to altitude and we were about to hike up a thing, I just started like gasping and was unable to continue and ended up having to go back down. Fortunately, like the clouds cleared out and I got some cool photos with Sora because of it, but it was also like one of those scary things of like, oh, I'm halfway up a mountain and I'm having trouble breathing, which is like, I should have tested myself beforehand and known my limits before I did that. So definitely a good thing there. And then the coyote you see there came from Germany. And then the person who took this was Jaffa, who's also from Germany. And this is a castle in the UK. It is Oxford Castle. Cool, so we were in Oxford. And this was with Becky and Gabe, who are 2 wonderful people over there. Yeah, we got here, I tried to get into the castle, but it was closed. And we couldn't get in because it's a castle, and they're hard to get into when people don't want you to get into them. Kind of designed that way. This was also in Norway. This was me just passed out on a bench, and they took my picture. Remember, I'll say it again, remember to take breaks and rest up when you're doing it. Nap time is good.
Bring water.
Yeah.
Bring water. There's like a drink powder mix called Liquid IV. That thing will make you drink a bunch of water.
I'm out of water right now, but I have like usually one water bottle on the outside for quick access and then one inside. Like I'll bring 2 liters of water at least.
And those Gatorade gummies.
Yeah, also electrolytes are important for what you're doing. Yep. And then this is the final crew with all our cars. And then there was a final picture at the end I didn't show. Oh yeah, this is another of the railroad in Germany that we went and explored. Okay, anyways, that's all my photos. Did we have any more questions, or are we done? Yes?
You mentioned bad experiences that you've had before. What are some of the best ones you've had?
The best ones I've had. Norway trip was definitely up there. Exploring Mount Rainier. Last year for my birthday, I brought a bunch of people up to Paradise in Washington. We went fursuiting up there. That was a really, really good time. I really enjoyed that. And it wasn't the road trip this year because I got sick, but the road trip the previous year to BLFC. A bunch of us stopped and took pictures at various abandoned places along the way, and that was a lot of fun. Also, like after the pandemic, one of my first exploring trips I went out with Smile on was going to check out the snow sheds up on the pass. It's near a place called, I forget what it's called, but if you search for like snow sheds pass in Washington, you should be able to find it. It's really cool because it's like this old abandoned concrete structure out in the middle of nowhere that you can just kind of look out and there was like water falling off the top of it. It looked really beautiful.
I'd like to add an experience. I was over in Depot Bay, Oregon. I used to have a suit named Toby. That was in the dance comp. I was full suiting for the first time, and I was with 2 other people. And this really nice old couple, came up to us and just gave us $20. They're like, oh my gosh, like, you guys are so cool. Like, here's a tip. And I was like, wait, what? Like, and this lady just was like so interested in what we were doing, and like, she was like, oh my gosh, like, this is such a blessing. I wish I could give more money to you. I'm like, you're
Like
Yeah.
a street performer.
Yeah. You'll run into sometimes people who think you're like, they're like, who do you work for? What is this a mascot for? And you're just like, I'm freelance. Yeah. All right. Any more questions, or did people have, actually, if we turn off the cameras, if people had questions about really cool places that they want to go to that I could talk about, or exploring, anything else? Or then I'll call it good and I'm going to stop my recording. All right, thank you for coming. Yay.
I also have a panel on Sunday from 11:30 to 12:30 if you want to know more about wildlife rehabilitation, some experiences I've had. But yeah, if you want more wildlife education, I could talk about it for hours. And then there's a Kahoot game and prizes. So